All right, so we're going to be finding the percent of a number. A lot of you already know this, so that should be just helpful. But I want to kind of go over it anyway because it is really important how to find percentages. So how do you find the percent of a number is the essential question. I just didn't write it down. Okay, so make sure you write that down. All right, so 40% of 200, there's two methods I can use here that I'm going to show you. One method is to change, one method is to go 40% is 40 over 100, times it by 200, and reduce it. The other way would be to change it to a decimal, multiply by 200, and there'd be my answer. So to find the percent of a number, you can either do one of two ways, and this is just two of the most basic ways. There are other methods to solve this, but to find a percent of a number, you can either write the percent as a fraction and multiply, or you can write the percent as a decimal and multiply. There are two examples here, same exact example, but shown different ways. So the percent as a fraction, so 5% of 200, 5% really means out of 100, so that's 5 over 100 times 200 over 1. I just made 200 a fraction by putting 1 under it. And I just multiply across. 5 times 200 is 1,000. 1 times 100 is 100. Divide it, I get a 10. Now some of you might be looking at this and saying, look, I could cross cancel right here. Yeah, you sure can. If that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. I just wanted to show you just simply going straight across. Now if I do 5% of 200 as a decimal, I need to remember that 5% is a decimal written like this. I move the decimal over 2 spots, and that's 0.05. 5 hundredths, if you will. That's why it's a 5 out of 100. And then I multiply by 200. Now, if I'm not using a calculator, I'm going to do it the long way here. And I do that, and I move the decimal 2 spots over, and I get 10. You'll notice that I get the same answer either way that I do that. Let's try another problem here. 25% of 180. 25% as a fraction is 25 over 100 times by 180, 180 over 1. I went ahead and multiplied straight across, got 4,500. 1 times 100 is 100, and I divide. I get 45. 25% of 180 as a decimal. Once again, I change it by moving the decimal 2 spots over. Multiply by 180 by the long way here, and move my decimal, and I find out it's 45. So either way, I get the same. So what I want you to do is, just for this time, I want you to go ahead and solve it both ways. One, changing the percentage to a fraction. For instance, 40 over 100 times 70. And then the other way would be to change it to a decimal. I can use a different color for that. 0.40 times 70. I want you to do it two different ways just so that you get some practice with that. So I'll do the first one for you, then you can pause it and try the rest out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 70 over 1 and multiply across. 40 times 70. Well, 4 times 7, that gives me 28. And then I put the 2 zeros there. Okay. And that divided by 100, well, that's easy. I'm just going to take the zeros away, and I get 28 as my answer. Okay, if I use it using decimals, well, let's take a look here. What I can do is I can go 70 times 0.40. I'm not really concerned with this last 0, so I'm going to go, let's see, 0, 0, 0. That's a 0, and that's 28. I get 2800, and I have to move it 2 spots, so I get 28 as my answer. Okay, pause the video right here and try out these next two problems, and I'll do it as well. Okay, well, if you didn't pause it, you'll see here that I'm going to work here, but hopefully you figured these answers out already. Let's see. Did you go 15 over 100 times 100? 15 over 100 times 100. Okay. This one's pretty simple. Change it over 1 and multiply straight across. I could do some cross canceling, but I'm just going to be consistent and not do it this time. 1500 divided by 100 is just 15. Well, that makes sense. 15% of 100 would be 15. All right, let's go the other way. 0.15 times 100. Okay, so 100 times 0.15. Let's see, I get 0.05. I get 0.01, and that's pretty much all I need. Move the decimal 2 spots over, and I find out that my answer is 15. Okay, come to the last one here. Change 55% into a fraction. Multiply by 160. Now, I'm going to go ahead and multiply across, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I really can't think of 55 times 160 off the top of my head. So I had to actually go to a calculator to do that. That's going to be 8,800 over 100. But I guess you could have made your life a little easier. I'll do it this way this time here. I could have done some cross-canceling, made my life a little easier. I could say, look, numbers that go both into 100 and 160. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 20 goes in here. I think that would be 80 times, right? 2 would go in there. Yeah, that works out. But wait, I can make it even smaller. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 80. Let's see. That's going to be 10 would give me 50 and then another 30. So that's 16. 16 times 55 is going to give me my answer. But I don't know if that's so much easier than what I need. Maybe I did something wrong here. Hold on. Let me double check. Wah, wah. I made a mistake right here. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hey, look, let's just do this again. 55 over 100 times 160 over 1. That's what you get for hurrying through the problem. Be careful. I make mistakes too. All right, hey, look, 20 goes in here 5 times. I got that part right. But it goes in here 8 times. Whoa, much better. Okay, so now if I do the math, it might be easier to do it in your head. 55 times 8 is 440. And divide by 5. I don't care which way you do it. Either way, you're going to end up with 88 as your answer. Okay. Whew. All that just to show you a different way. All right, let's come over here and change this to a decimal. 0.55 times it by 160. All right, I'm going to do this the long way, just like this. You can watch how this works. So let's see. 0, and that's a 0 because that's 30. And then that's 5, and that's 8. And then I go 0, and that's 30 again, and the same thing, 8. So get 8, 8, 0, 0, move it over 2 times. My answer is 88. Okay, so I kind of went through the long way there to show you 2 different ways of solving each of those problems. For that lesson, you just had to do it both ways, but eventually you'll get to choose which one makes more sense to you. Last thing I want to talk about today is percents greater than 100. Don't be fooled, all right? Percents greater than 100 can be written as improper fractions or decimals greater than 1. Okay? So let's take a look what I mean by that. 140%, that's 140 over 100, which I could reduce to 7 over 5 or some other equivalent fraction, but either one is okay. I could even change it to a mixed number, okay? But that's not necessary. You can probably just choose one of these two is fine. And then last but not least, 140% is 1.4. 100 and another 40%. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to go ahead and solve just 2 problems both ways. Okay, so first one, 150 of 80, 150%. Well, it's 150 over 100 times it by 80 over 1. I multiply the top together. I multiply the bottom together, numerators and denominators, and I divide. I get 120. 150% of 80 done decimal format. That's 1.50 times 80. I multiplied. I went and did the math for you already, moved my decimals, and I get the same answer. So either way is fine. You choose what way works best for you. One more example and last example. 160% of 35. So 160 over 100 times by 35 over 1. I can multiply across, right? And then have that happen. Now, if I don't have a calculator, it could take me a little bit of time to do that. Now, over here, this is without a calculator, but you can see I can kind of work through this a lot faster, and that's just my preference. But you choose what works best for you. Okay, and that's it for today's notes.